Today I'm going to be going over how to build a intake form for your website or any project that you're working on. I have this example here of what we're going to be building. In this tutorial, we're going to be building a project intake form, and we're going to be starting from scratch here. So I'm going to build it and end up with this as a final product. So if we hop right in, we've got essentially how I've built it out is we've got 3 files here. We've got the notes of what we need to put in the form. We've got our index.html file where we're going to add our form element, and then at the very end we can then compare it to the final solution, make sure I didn't miss anything. But let's dive right in. So with forms, we're going to start with the form container as the first start. So we have some boilerplate, we've got this header, we have an empty page, but let's go ahead and add our form element. And every form element is going to have the server endpoint and where's it going, and then it's going to have a method, and we're going to be using post to send that data. So submit, there we go. Okay, and now we're going to start adding the form fields. We add the container, now that's the form fields, that's step 2, and we want to go down this list and start adding them. So let's start with project name. So we can go ahead and for every field we're going to have an input and then also a label. So we want an input, we want an ID. This is going to be project name, so ID of project. We've got, let's add the type of text. We're going to add the name. Okay. Project name. Okay. And then we're going to do the label. Project name. And we're going to say, hey, what is this label for? It's for our input with the ID of project. So we're going to put project. Okay. We're going to space this out a bit, add some breakpoints. We're going to also make this required. So for a lot of these form fields, they're going to have the same 4 attributes. There's going to be type, ID, name, and required, unless the type is already specified in the name of the element. We're going to use type in all other circumstances. So that is there. So we've got 1 so far. Project name. Okay. Let's go ahead and add the next one, and we can carry some of these over just for the purposes of having it nice and convenient here. Add a comment just so we can see all of this. Okay, so we're gonna add the next one, another label. We'll have to add the input first. I like adding input first. Just makes it easier than the labels, that last final step. So input type is going to be client name here. So type. So for client name, we're going to do type of text again. We're going to do ID of name. We're going to do name of name, and we're going to make it required. And then we're going to add some breakpoints, and we're going to add a label for what's the label for? It's for the input with the ID of name, and then we're gonna say this is the client name, and we can add a break tag. Okay, there we go. Next one. Now let's go ahead and add the client email. So we want to do another input. We're going to go down the same process. Type is email, ID is email, and name is email. And we're going to say this is required again. So you'll start to see it's a common, common practice, the routine. We're doing the same thing over and over again for a lot of the form fields. It's just some of the things, some of the text and the content's actually going to be just different. So label for what label is it for? The input with the ID of email, for email. And we're going to say this is client email. Okay. Great. And we can also, this isn't registered in the browser, we can just space it out for some added clarity. Okay. Client email we've gotten. Now let's do client phone. So we, as always, we start with the input. Input type is going to be that phone, or TEL for phone. ID equals phone. Name equals phone. We want to make it required. And you don't have to make all your form fields required. Just for the tutorial, just to make it really easy to understand, is you're noticing that the same 4 attributes used over and over again, just to get in the habit, and then you can decide when you want a field to be required or not. So we can go ahead, say label for, what's it for? It's for the field with the ID of phone. We're going to say client phone, and we can add some break tags here just to make it cleaner. And you could do this a lot faster by copying and pasting, changing the text, but just for that repetition, it's good to do this so you can really ingrain these different types of form fields and input types you can do. Okay, so we did client phone. Great. Then we got project type. So input type equals text, ID equals project type, name equals project type. We want to make it required. We want some break tags. We want a label. Okay, label for the field with the ID of project type. Okay, and we can say project type here. Okay. Let's bring some other project type. We got project description. Let's bring the rest over. Okay. Okay, so we've gotten this so far. Project type, let's space that break. Okay. Now let's start adding. These ones are going to be getting a bit more complex or different from the standard form field. So we got project description. So that's actually a text area. It's going to have, since the field is already implied in the name of the tag, you don't need the type, but you do need ID. And we can say description. We can say name is description. And we can say that this is required. And then we can say row 4 call 50. See if I did that right. Row 4 call 50. So you still have ID name required. Row is going to be how many spaces downwards. Let's see. Rows. There we go. Okay, so it's rows and then it's calls. Okay, there we go. So rows, the rows attribute is going to be how many sentences you can fit before you have to stretch this out, this text area. So text area box is a free form. You could type whatever you want. By default, it's going to be that free. The space that you see is going to be the four lines essentially before you have to start stretching it. So we've specified the rows before, and then the columns is going to be, or the calls is going to be 50, and that's essentially that's going to be the width, and that's more like the amount of characters you can fit before you go to the next line. So we can say 100. You'll see that it doubles in size. We're just going to stick to 50 just to keep it like so. And then we want to add a label. We can say for the ID, the field with the ID of description. Great. And then we want this label to be project description. Okay. There we go. And then let's fix the spacing with some break tag. So, just for consistency, we're adding two break tags after the input, and then one break tag after the label, just to have some consistent spacing here. Okay. So we did project description. Then we've got expected deadline. So that's going to be input type equals date, and we want it to be ID equals deadline, name equals deadline. This is going to be for deadline, and then we're going to say it's required. Getting ahead of myself here. Then we have label for the for attribute. Which label is this for? It's for the input field with the ID of deadline. And we're going to say expected deadline. We're going to give it a break tag. We're going to give it 2 break tags here. And there we go, expected deadline. And with the date type, now it's cool because we have, this feature that we wouldn't normally have with some other types. So this is, specific for dates. And we've added that. Okay, great. Now we want to add a checkbox. Let's go. And this is just going to input type equals checkbox, and then the ID will do agreement. We'll say the name equals agreement, and we'll say it's required. So the type is going to be checkbox. The label for the input field with the ID of agreement, we're going to say for the label, we're going to use this text here. And this is, this isn't a contractual binding agreement. This is just for example purposes, of something that you could do. And, in this case, we're actually going to flip. Let's go ahead and reverse it. Let's put the label in front of the input. We're going to flip this around. And do that instead. We'll have the box is ahead, and we are not going to use the break tag. So there we go. It's all on one line. So we did instead. Usually we do label then input. In this case, we're doing input then label. Just like to look a little bit better. Just personal taste. Okay. So we've added this. Then we're going to add the estimated budget. So we're going to do type. We'll do input type equals number. Since we're using numbers for the budget, we're going to do ID. We're going to say budget. Why not? Name equals budget. Perfect. And then we can say, hey, this is also required. And then we're going to say let's add a label for the input field with the ID of budget, and we're going to call it estimated budget in US dollars, like so. Like so. Wonderful. Okay. And then we can also, let's go ahead and move to the next one. We can say now we want project priority, and this is going to be a select. So we're going to say select, and we're going to give it some options with values. We're going to say low, and we can, another attribute you can add, so we have low, we have medium, we have high, And we can also, on top of, this is the standard implementation, but you also can add, hey, selected, which one you want to display in the drop down, and we want low to appear first. We don't want to take on these higher priority ones if we can avoid it. So ideally we want customers to select the low option, so that's why we're going to put selected. And then we can say, ID of priority, name, priority, make it required, and then we can have a label for the field with the ID of priority, and we want to say project priority, like so. And okay, low, medium, high, budget, great. Okay, and then let's space this out. With some break tags. Perfect. Okay. Great. So that's all of them, and then we're just going to add the submit button. So that's going to be another input. Input, we're going to say the ID or the type, the type is going to be submit. The value is going to be submit. ID can be there's no ID because we're not just the submit button, like so. So the input. Okay, so we've created the form and we can compare that. Submit project. Let's fix that. We say submit project. Okay. Looks. Oh, we can add US dollars. Add the colon. Okay, cool. That's pretty much right on. The exact. Then there's one last attribute that you can add, and I can't quite remember it. It's the step one. So the step, if you add the step, and let's bring this over. So by default, the estimated budget here, the estimated budget will increment by 1. So if you come here, estimated budget increments by 1. But if you add the step attribute, what's really cool is you can change that increment. So step, we're going to now increment by 100, like so. So that's something kind of cool for the step attribute that you can add to whenever using a type of number. But that is building an intake form. As an example, we're not covering, from here you would take this and start doing some CSS, style it out a bit more. But this is, just to get the basics, to start understanding more about forms, to practice building forms. What I would encourage you to do is something similar. If you're learning forms for the first time, I have other videos and also blog posts on my website, MatthewSeaver.com, where you could learn a bit more about forms, where I break down, how to build forms from scratch. This was, more of just an example to go straight through. You can also, to challenge yourself, is to do the exact same thing. So you take a form. You can, find an example online and add it as a solution.html or whichever you'd like. You can put that in the browser like I've done. And then you have your workspace in index.html here. And then you add, a notes.txt to specify, hey, what exactly do you want to build in a form? For any form that you're working on from the start, I would recommend adding the details of the form. Add that first. For whenever you're building out a form, before you start to outline it, whether you want to build it in Figma, whether you want to add a notes.txt file, whatever you want to do to get all the information, have the solution, and then from here you can start practicing building it out yourself. Of course, you can see all of it online. The goal is to try to memorize and get to feel comfortable with this, even though you can look up, oh, what is this type, or what is this input? How can I do this? That's what a lot of programmers do, a lot of developers do. But as much as possible, it's good to try to do it without checking your work, and it's going to make you a faster programmer in the long run.